Welcome to the National Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal weekly webcast series. My name is Ashley Cope and I'm the marketing manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. I would just like to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question or chat box and they will be brought up during the presentation. We'll also have time for questions at the end. This session will also be recorded and available on our website. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Victor Rocha, Conference Chairman of the National Indian Gaming Association.
Thank you, Ashley. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Rocha. I'm the Conference Chairman for the National Gaming Association, and my co-host is Jason Giles. And this is the new normal, excuse me, welcome. We have a very special webcast this week. We're very fortunate to have the National Indian Gaming Commission as our guest. We have Chairman Sequoyah Simermeyer. Chairman, good afternoon. We have Vice Chair Kathryn Isom-Clause. Good afternoon, Kathryn. And Jeannie Hovland, the Associate Commissioner for the National Indian Gaming Commission. Welcome. We really appreciate that you're here today. As you know, or as we've kind of discussed, we've just come out of a pandemic. And, it was pretty scary. And I think, today after this webcast, I go to get my second vaccination. And, when I was in Vegas last week looking at the conference of the new conference facility that we're going to have, we're going to be using in Las Vegas, I did an informal poll with a bunch of people I was with, and there was about a group of 8 of us. And I asked everyone if anybody had been vaccinated, and everyone except one person had been vaccinated, and that person was going to be vaccinated the very next day. So it seems to me that there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the future of gaming. And I think this was the thing that we were waiting for, but at certain times it just seemed so grim that we would never get here, if it was even possible to get here. But yet here we are. And I think this is a very momentous occasion. I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. But more importantly, I would like to hear your opinions on what happened, where we came from, and where we're going. And Chairman Simermeyer, welcome. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thank you, Victor.
So first of all, congratulations for surviving the pandemic like everyone. And I don't say that facetiously. I mean that in a sincere, honest way, that the fact that, we've all made it. And yesterday we had a meeting, Zoom meeting for my tribe, and we talked about how many tribal members, we talked about how many vaccinated and stuff like that, but we lost 3 tribal members, so, when I say congratulations and welcome, I'm sincerely mean it, that we are here, so.
I appreciate that, Victor.
Well, sir, tell us about how the last year has been for the National Gaming Commission.
Sure. Thanks, Victor. And I want to say thank you to you and to NIGC for having this webcast series. It's really an invaluable resource to keeping all of the community, whether it's the stakeholders, the regulatory community, connected. And that was really an important part of the work I think everyone was doing. It was an important part of the work that we were doing at NIGC over the last year, especially to try to maintain those connections. So thank you for that. And thanks for the opportunity to join on today. I'm really excited to have my colleagues on the commission, Kathryn Isom-Clause and Jeannie Hovland, joining us too, and I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit more earlier on. But I will say, in response to how it's been for us as an agency, I know that it's been important for the agency in the work that we're doing. It's married up in many ways with a lot of the work that we've invested in recent years. There's 4 areas of emphasis for the agency have been integrity, the industry's integrity, accountability, and how the agency operates, our preparedness, and even before the pandemic, whether that's through workforce or technology issues, and being innovative in our outreach work that we do. And so during the last year, the industry's gone through this unprecedented time of nearly every single one of the over 520 operations closing, and all operations operating in a modified capacity today. And we've been able to find opportunities to focus our work, to be responsive, to develop resources, and to play our role as a regulatory community to help tribes rebound because of the importance that the industry provides for helping to improve lives in Indian country, helping to improve economies, and helping to provide for future generations. So we try to take that seriously in our work as the regulatory body, and I'm appreciative to have my colleagues on to help in that work too.
Yeah, thank you very much. Vice Chair Isom-Clause, first of all, thank you, Kathryn, for coming. I hope you don't mind if I call you by your first name, my familiarity. I hope it doesn't put you off.
Please do.
Thank you. You know, I mean, it had to be scary. Exactly 1 year ago, we were actually, yesterday was the 1 year anniversary of the closing of Pechanga. You know what I mean? And I remember driving by the casino for 2 months, and it was probably one of the scariest things in my adult life, because, you know, everything good that has happened in the last 30 years has come from gaming with my tribe. And not to say that it wasn't before, but the success and the breaking of the cycle, you know, and to see the casinos closed. What kind of response were you getting initially when this pandemic started happening?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, a lot of people felt like you, Victor. And, you know, first of all, thank you for having us on. I didn't get to do my introduction, but we'll jump right in. That's great. I know we want to get to the substance here right away, so I appreciate that. But yeah, I think, you know, people around the country were having that same reactions, you know, seeing these facilities that are the lifeblood of their community having to suspend their operations. It's a huge effect, you know, we're still seeing the numbers. We don't have the full financial projections of how that's affected everyone individually or even in the aggregate. So, you know, I think we'll see that for a lot of time to come. At the NIGC, of course, we had to refocus a lot of our work to devote more, you know, intense resources to COVID, helping tribes to prepare, you know, under EPHNS. And I'm sure the chairman's going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, because, you know, much of that was under operational direction under the chairman's direction. But yeah, I think absolutely we've had similar experiences around the country.
Yeah, it has been unprecedented in its scale too, because I mean, to have, you know, like I said, everything good associated with tribal gaming just to come to a stop. And, you know, it was a real eye opener on many different levels. I think, you know, the fact that I think it brings the diversification right back to the front of the conversation. But I mean, was there a lot of direction of them asking you how to shut down? What do we do? How is this going to do? Where, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just so scary when everything just stops. And then, you know, was there people, were tribes reaching out to you, or how did that work?
Yeah. Well, I know that I can say from early on, one of the important resources has been our regional directors and our regional offices, and maintain that local connection with what's going on the ground. And that informed a lot of the work that we did, and helped to provide some insight into what were going to be the most valuable resources to invest in. And so over the course of last year and continuing on now, we have about 50 different resources that we've maintained to help tribes. Early on, much of the questions were about how to rapidly shut down or temporary closure. So we worked with partners across Indian country. We worked with public health experts to try and develop and articulate what role we will play as the National Indian Gaming Commission. We've also, over the course of last year, developed a model infectious disease plan for tribes. We've looked at developing primers dealing with cyber technology issues, which became a consideration over time. And we've had a rolling frequently asked questions document where it's helped to provide tribes with assessments of the public health standards, make decisions for decision makers and tribal government about reopening or closing. And those are all local decisions that are important to them to balance all of the considerations in their community. But our role as a regulatory body is to try to be transparent and open and proactive as much as we can. There's a lot of good work that took place in the industry amongst the operators, as well as TGRAs working in cooperation with one another, but we've tried to support that work throughout the year, and we continue to do that. A lot of our compliance division, our finance folks, technology folks are all working hard on that. Wow.
Well, you know, there's a lot that I didn't know, you know what I mean? And all this information is still accessible and available by reaching out to the regional directors and stuff like that. You know, yesterday I noticed the Navajos announced that on Friday they're going to begin opening up their casinos, and I think they might be one of the last tribal casinos to be closed still in this pandemic too, which is just, I imagine, just devastating to their bottom line. You know, but you know, they did it because they felt it was the safest thing for them and for their tribe. And I commend them for their strength and their fortitude, you know, because it's definitely not an easy decision and stuff like that. Jeannie, welcome. I apologize, I'm not ignoring you. Could you introduce yourself? And Kathryn reminded me that I didn't formally introduce everyone. So could you introduce yourself?
Sure, no problem. And Peti Washte, Chante Washte, Nape Chuzapi. Good afternoon, and I greet you with a good heart, and also reiterate with the chair and vice chair, we are so grateful to have this opportunity to be on your show today. I'm Jeannie Hovland. I'm a member of the Flandreau Santee Sioux tribe, and I joined NIGC team as Associate Commissioner about 8 weeks ago. And it's been great. I'm learning a lot. And you know, first of all, I want to express my condolences for the loss that you've had in your communities. Minakuyapi Oyasin, we're all related. So as we see our relatives in other nations, Navajo Nation, your nation, across the country, it affects all of Indian country as we see these losses. And unfortunately, some of our communities in South Dakota, my home state, we're still responding to while still trying to recover from the COVID. And so it's important that we all continue to be good relatives and follow the CDC guidelines and be cognizant of, you know, the safety that's out there as we continue on with the vaccinations, which we're so grateful for. And also educating, you know, as a commission, we want to educate those outside of Indian country that our casino revenues affect the communities, the tribal communities and the surrounding communities. As we talk about, we've lost so many of our fluent speakers. The economies, so many of the programs that Congress funds often is underfunded, and our casino revenues pick up the additional costs so that they can be sustainable, so that we can keep our languages alive, education programs and housing. So really it has impacted our Native communities as well as the surrounding communities. So thank you for helping us to get the message out about the importance of the recovery efforts as we work together through recovery and responding to COVID yet.
Well, Jeannie, you know, thank you so much. You know, there's a lot there, you know what I mean? The fact that, you know, and I've said it here before, and I've said it multiple times, and I'll probably be saying it to the day I die, that, you know, gaming is a means to an end, and the end is cultural preservation. So that's really, you know, it's an existential issue, you know, and nobody really understands that more than us. And that's why we're so ferocious in our advocacy and in defending tribal gaming and our people. But you know, you're absolutely right. We are all connected, and it all affects all of us. You know, as Chairman said, you know, you guys sound like you were really busy during the shutdown. You know, can you tell us some? Can you, or you know, and actually, it goes to all of you. Can you tell us some of the things that you guys, some of your new programs that you're going to be implementing? You know, because of you had this downtime, and you know, I mean, I'm sure we all obviously it was not. You guys all had to work remote, like all of us did. But can you tell us a little bit about what you guys were doing during the shutdown?
Sure. Well, I know that dedicating a steady amount of resources and attention to COVID response was a lot of what our staff had been doing internally, adjusting our operations. So that we can manage the uncertainty that the pandemic presents, whether it's in our operations or in anticipating what the needs are going to be and the requests that are coming from Indian country. We've also dedicated last year to continuing some of the ongoing work that we had in past years. We have coming on, since I became chairman, one of the goals for me has been to try to work to make all of our offices, our regions and the divisions uniform in the approach that they're taking to interpreting policy, to applying our regulations. And so we've done some good work over the last year in standing up some stronger internal procedures. We've done a lot of work in trying to be more transparent and putting out guidance that we have. And I think we can expect to see more of that in the coming months, that work coming to a head. We have dedicated a good amount of time during 2020, something that was a priority for the agency starting the year with updating and addressing some of the deficiencies in our fingerprint program. The National Indian Gaming Commission is a conduit for the majority of the 520 operations for obtaining criminal history record information for the tribe's background and licensing programs. And so during last year, we had this, in order to comply with existing FBI requirements for using that national network of criminal history information, we had to stand up a lot of policies, make a lot of investments, and called on tribes to help us in doing that to make sure we had a program going forward. So we are, in the past few months, have been looking to get tribes feedback on some of the memoranda that are were required for that fingerprint program to work with under FBI standards. I think we're gonna, where there's a resources and an interest, I think there's been an opportunity to look at other ways to update our background and licensing approach to help tribes in that, so we can use technology or we can be more efficient, more transparent. We're going to be doing that as well in the coming months. And we also had a number of work that we've done in past years in the area of human trafficking that we continued to work on to try to find opportunities in that area. And I'm really appreciative to my colleagues in the commission for helping to lead a lot of that, both with Commissioner Hovland coming on recently and Vice Chair Isom-Clause, who's dedicated a lot of thought into making this, finding out ways we can promote the good work that's going on in Indian country, where the industry is helping to provide good examples and the regulatory communities helping to support the capacity in that area. But I'll defer to them if they'd like to share a little bit more about that topic and the work that we're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
If I could jump in there. Victor, I know you've always been a strong supporter on this issue, so I appreciate the time you're giving to it as well. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but hopefully soon we are launching a webpage with anti-human trafficking resources. Their whole commission's been very involved in pulling things together, as well as our staff. Hope that'll be a resource for tribes looking for more information. We also, I think we've talked before about the bulletin that is still forthcoming. I think we're in the final stages of that. Sometimes those stages take the longest, but hopefully we'll get that one out soon too. And one thing I want to reiterate with this work is this is not about us telling tribes what to do. This is about us providing resources, providing support. This isn't a gaming problem, but a lot of tribes see their gaming facility as part of a holistic solution to this issue. So that's how we want to approach it and support that work, providing connections with other tribes and resources, organizations that have materials out there, things they can use in their facilities. That's really the goal of this work. So I hope we can share more about that soon.
Well, Kathryn, as you know, that is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I think it's very important that we protect our families and we protect our women and our children. And I think it all begins with us and us providing these safe facilities. I know, we've talked about this issue. We haven't talked about it on the webcast, but we've talked about it in our conferences and stuff like that. And I promise we will be doing that also. That's not an issue that I expect to be dropping anytime soon. So Jeannie, also, what else have you guys? What is the role? What has been the role of the NIGC during COVID? Yeah, I dropped a bomb on you, Jeannie.
Okay, sorry. Well, like I said, I'm on my 8th week.
Oh my gosh, welcome. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So what's it like finding your office then? What's it like moving in?
It's been unique times, for sure, unprecedented times, for sure. But just easing into the new role, as well as navigating through the COVID and the CDC guidelines. I've been very welcomed by the chair and vice chair and the team, and they've been very busy, and we continue to be very busy. We had the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're working on with NIGA last week at their summit, and really we're looking forward to outreach from our tribal gaming leadership as to how we can support their efforts and what they would like us to really focus on. And the chairman shared a little bit of some of those areas. earlier, but we're looking forward to the outreach that the chairman's going to share a little bit more about. And again, be driven through tribal leadership, consultation, and looking forward for those conversations coming up soon.
You know, you bring home a good point, which I was going to talk about, and Chairman Kathryn, you guys can also talk about this, but I know you guys were a little shorthanded before, and it's nice to see Jeannie back in. And you know, we have a new administration. Yesterday was a very historic day with Secretary Hovland being installed and stuff like this. What kind of optimism can you give me about this new administration? What can you make me feel good?
Well, Victor, I know that it is exciting to have a full commission, Native members of the commission. It is exciting that I think we all appreciate Secretary Hovland coming in. And I think that it's something that, my wife and I were just talking this morning, and she was reminding me that it was just a couple of years ago when she and I and our kids were visiting my family out in New Mexico, and the kids were watching TV and came across a campaign ad for then candidate Hovland for the Congress, and the questions and the excitement that it generated, even just our own family. And I think it's something that is a very exciting part for Indian country to have the first ever Native American secretary. The scope of responsibility, not just in the amount of public lands responsible for management, the age of the agency, its ability to influence the nation-to-nation relationship with Indian country in no other way than any other agency can. It's a very exciting time, and I think it's something that we're all looking forward to, and it's a real day of pride, I think, for all of Indian country.
Yeah, you know, in my 24 years of doing Pechanga, I think around 23 years of doing Pechanga.net, you know, I've seen the NIGC in its different formations and through different administrations and stuff like that. And it just seems like this is a real time for optimism on what we have together. We have an administration that wants to work with tribes, an administration that wants to support regulatory issues and enforcement stuff. So having the NIGC, a strong NIGC, a one with all the officers, is very important to Indian country, you know, and especially now going forward. You know, one of the things that we've discussed many times on this webcast is that, you know, the pandemic has changed things permanently in many different ways, you know. So what kind of changes are you seeing ahead with the NIGC and tribal gaming?
I think with regard to the pandemic itself, one thing I know that we are kind of still learning internally about our operations are we have seen in response to that a real uptick in the advisory opinions that the agency provides for what we call declination letters, where partners, whether that is industry partners who are helping to bring an advantage to an operation to help grow the operation, or partners in the financial sector to help tribes respond to uncertainty right now. There's been a large increase in requests for the agency to provide advisory opinions in those areas. And I think that there's a lot of lessons we can learn from that, ways to help improve that declination letter process, to streamline it where it's possible, but also to support the work that comes out of the General Counsel's office in that area. So that's an important, I think, thing that we're continuing to see and learn about. The role I mentioned before about our technology team helping to support being proactive in identifying challenges that existed because of COVID in terms of capacity, both our agency's capacity to manage virtual site visits, our capacity to help be more efficient in how we receive background investigations. Those are all technology driven, as well as the expertise and guidance that we can give to the regulatory community about ensuring technology standards and capacity are working in the operations and from a regulator's perspective. So those are things I think that we're excited about. I think that there's opportunities to build on that. You know, the commitment and dedication to consultation across the administration is an exciting thing. I think it provides an opportunity to elevate with some of the agencies that we work with that may not always focus on tribal issues in the law enforcement community. An opportunity to look more closely at ways we can work with them and with our strong relationship that we've had with Interior, opportunities to continue that relationship, and the work that we do is to kind of meet our distinct roles under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act. But I think there's a lot that we're excited for and opportunities we want to keep building on this year.
Jason and I were talking earlier, and last week we had Klaus Robinson on here to talk about their white paper, and they're predicting anywhere from a $10 billion to a $12 billion shortage in revenue from last year. How is that going to affect the NIGC and any country?
Sure.
How do you see that affect? Excuse me.
Sure. Well, I think the Vice Chair may mention that we're still understanding all of the impact. I think we have, from an operations perspective, we anticipated last year that we needed to make changes to try to prepare for the uncertainty that might create in the industry, both uncertainty in terms of what sort of expertise and resources we were going to need to stand up to help meet our mission and to help support tribes as they're rebounding, and whether that's in declination letters for finance agreements to be timely on that, to make sure we have compliance staff in place to handle new questions that are coming about because how operators are trying to rebound and redesign in a new market here. We don't want to be a roadblock in that innovation, so we're trying to stand that up. And in the uncertainty it creates around how our agency operates and some of its planning processes. And so one thing that we've committed to as a commission is holding three different types of formats to have more tribal involvement in our planning processes. And so last year during the summer 2020, the commissioners consulted with tribes on our budget development process, which at that point in the annual cycle is a time when the commission is considering how to finalize its coming year fiscal year budget. We've also stood up quarterly operations briefings where the commission briefs tribal leaderships and educates them about how we're making adjustments in our operation, what kind of operation changes we might be having in the coming quarter. And we're actually having our next operation briefing tomorrow, March 18th, for tribal leaders as well. And a third thing that we've done to try to address some of the uncertainty and how it's impacted our operations is that we're committed to standing up later on this spring region summits. And so we've had to transition a lot of our regional activity that would have been in person. We usually have a spring and a summer regional training conference where the regulatory community comes together with our regions and with our staff and identify compliance issues and perform trainings, but also where there's a network that occurs and where we can identify what's on the horizon. And so we would like to try to institutionalize a virtual summit where regions can lead that conversation with the commission and help to do some of those things that were done at regional training conference, but also help to get the region's input on what are the regional considerations that the commission should be taking into account as it does its planning and where it's investing its time and resources to. So that's something we're looking forward to standing up in the next couple of months here. But it's definitely been a way to help us kind of re-examine the role that we can play in our decision-making process and make us more accountable.
Well,
Chairman,
go ahead,
sorry,
Jason.
Victor. Yeah,
No, go ahead, Jay.
I'll jump in. I've just been quiet today because I really think it's important when you guys are out on forums like this that as many people get to hear what you have to share as possible, and we appreciate that. We talked to Commissioner Hovland last week, Chairman Stevens and I, so that was very kind of her to give us an introductory phone call. The one thing we keep coming back to, Chairman Simermeyer, is as Victor just pointed out, we're at least going to be 25% down in our gaming revenues from last year. And you guys have set your fee rate for 2021. Are you, and all those initiatives you mentioned, they're going to cost money and you're going to need personnel. What does your budget look like? It comes down to dollars and cents. What is your budget looking like this year? Do you have enough money to meet your needs? And I bring this up in the manner of, Indian country looks at the NIGC as, our agency. It's who we establish a government-to-government relationship with when it comes to Indian gaming. And we don't want to see you guys in a shortfall. And we're willing to, help you out and go to Congress and seek extra funds if they're needed. So how are you guys dealing with, you know, a potential financial shortfall, at least as compared to 2020?
Yeah. No, thanks, Jason. I appreciate that. I appreciate that over the course of the last year, we've maintained close contact with NIGC and other stakeholders and tribal leadership, especially on trying to, like I said, address some of this uncertainty. And we talked about how, under IGRA's design, the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, that we're a fee-based agency, and so you know, we're aware of the impact that it has on the industry. We are through some of those measures that I've talked about, trying to keep tribal leadership and the industry aware of what we're doing to try to address that through the course of the last year, through consultation, through regular budget briefings and operations briefings. With all of the work that we're doing this last year, we've been we've put in place a number of cost saving measures, as you're aware, and that's part of the reason for the briefings like the one we're having tomorrow, to kind of go through that, whether it's a hiring freeze, whether it's we're reassessing non-mission critical activity. But there's been an ongoing conversation in our agency and then with our partners at all the different strategies to try to address that. I know that all throughout last year, the vice chair and I were working hard to remain aware of the impact that this has on the industry. We're monitoring that really closely. And we are making those adjustments as best we can and trying to find as many strategies as we can to reduce that uncertainty. But that's the approach we've been taking. And, you know, we can't say as a commission how appreciative we are for the trust that the public puts in us to manage our fee-based operations and to try to be as efficient and close to our mission as we can. That's our responsibility as a matter of good governance as the federal agency that we are.
I could just add a couple of things to that. If you know, that I know Commissioner Hovland wasn't around during this time, so it's, you know, a difficult time to start with a new agency too, I'm sure. But you know, the chairman and I really worked hard on the budget to try to cut things down to as bare as possible, you know, even at levels that I don't think would be sustainable in the long term, because we do need to allow some room for growth in the industry and that sort of thing, you know. But we've tried to be as completely conscious of every dollar as we can. And, you know, some things we've been able to cut down, like on travel, of course, we haven't been doing that. But just the entire time, we're so mindful of the hurt that tribes were feeling this whole time. You know, we don't want to increase that. That's the last thing we want to do. And as a fee-based agency, it's really hard to find other solutions, but we're trying to be creative and seek, you know, other ways of making ends meet here. But I also want to say that I appreciate the way that you characterized our relationship with Indian country. That's, you know, how we see it as well. Thank you.
Well, it's important to establish that because we really are looking at, as Victor alluded to in his opening, we're looking at a new beginning here with regards to gaming. That the pandemic accelerated all these issues that had been out there for over a decade, whether it's Wire Act reform, other things, mostly related to technology that impact Indian gaming. And we're seeing online sports betting and online gaming period just taking off state by state. And one of the things we're going to have to start to work with the NIGC is, I don't know if it's feasible anymore to come up with sort of a minimum internal control standards for at least online sports betting. Everybody is doing it under their own paradigm in different states. And I don't know if we'll ever get to the point where, you know, one size fits all with regards to sports gambling. But certainly with the online technology, we're going to need, like you alluded to earlier, Sequoyah, you know, these declination letters, but also just more guidance on this could really be helpful for a lot of our tribes. And I'm sure you guys are monitoring what's happening out there technology wise. And we may have to come to the NIGC when we take on this Wire Act reform, you know, and not just Wire Act reform. Another big one is the slot reporting limit. You know, that's been stuck in stone since I believe 1979. And that's just a huge regulatory burden to stop a machine every time someone wins a jackpot. pay them a 1099. So those are just some of the issues we're looking at for this year. And the pandemic has accelerated a lot of this because obviously our customer base is hit, and we're going to have to recover as quickly as we can in order to ensure future viability of the land-based casinos, especially the ones on the reservation. Sorry, that's a lot to digest there, but we are looking for NIGC to help us on those issues.
Yeah, no, thanks, Jason, for mentioning those. Like the slot reporting issue is a IRS requirement, and where there's a role that we can play to be helpful. I think, and insights that we can provide. I know that there's been some history in terms of how they've tried to kind of approach that issue and ways we hope to continue that dialogue to see what we can do to be supportive. And I know you may mention too of the approach, whether it's with, I think you're like sports betting and mobile wagering in that regard. And, the mix, our minimum total control standards and our regulations apply to the class 2 gaming, and typically, I think you're talking about sports betting, and that would apply in class 3 and would be influenced by those local things that are dynamics that are governed by the compact that tribes have entered into. So we definitely want to try to be proactive, whether it's through these new technologies from before the pandemic, or new technologies that have been, as you said, accelerated because of the pandemic, that operations are willing to look at and try to provide guidance in a proactive way. At the start of 2020, we focused a lot of trying to promote guidance we put out about as tribes were contemplating sports betting and trying to clarify the role that the agency plays and the considerations that we have for management contract considerations or for sole proprietary interest implications. And so as we continue to assess that rollout, we'll look for what new information, perhaps with regards to technology, that we can provide to give some clarity there. But I think that we're all appreciate that insight that you're giving, and it's something that we want to keep working together on. I don't know if my other colleagues in the commission have other thoughts about these topics, but you're definitely speaking about topics that we've been thinking a good deal about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the idea of moving forward with, what are we doing in the industry now? That's kind of exactly where we're at as a commission right now, is trying to round up what are all the topics we can go consult on. And, that doesn't just mean regulatory changes, but, other things we can do through policies or other actions or trainings. So that's, exactly what we want to hear right now is, what you all see as like the priorities to address first. We have our own list that we're going to roll out pretty soon, but, not to speak for the entire commission, but I think we're looking at 1 or maybe 2 consultation series this year. I think last year we really heard a lot that folks needed a minute to kind of, figure out what's going on with COVID, that, it's not the time to introduce new changes, but this year, we're hoping to get back on track with those.
By the way, I would like to commend everyone in the NIGC for your Zoom etiquette. I think you guys might be the best ones so far. You mute and you unmute, and very, very professional. So I think that's a really good sign.
They dress professionally. It doesn't look like they're in there.
They mute, they unmute. I mean, they're just the best, man. Yeah, you guys are the best. The matching backgrounds. You got like a band or something,
Well, Vic, it's been a stress test for our organization in terms of our technology over the last year. And I give credit to our training program folks who have tried to help all of our agency get better at working virtually. And they've really pivoted. Interestingly enough, we have not held, like I mentioned before, virtual training or regional training conferences, but we have stood up a virtual boot camp on specific roles in the regulatory bodies. We've stood up a monthly virtual training, and we've had 1 already. We're going to be having 2 more national virtual training conferences. So they've helped us to kind of get more efficient at that. And there's been a lot of folks working hard, not just in training, but in other parts of the agency on that too. So, but thanks for the compliment. I'll be sure to let them know.
Well, and then all, you bring a really important point, is that, the fact that, we've been forced to use this new medium, and we're realizing how neglectful we've been. We're using this in communication, and it really is a game changer for a lot of us. And we realize, wow, we should have been doing this before. You know what I mean? And by the way, all these guitars are rentals. They go back after the end of this webcast too. So, you know, we're kind of doing the same thing. But, you know, you did mention virtual. So you do intend on keeping this, and this is not a thing that's going to go away with the pandemic. This will be more outreach this way too then. Yeah,
I think it makes sense. I think we've seen some success. It saves money for tribes in terms of having to send people to some of our NIGC trainings. It's a more cost-effective way for us to do it as well. And it seems like, I mean, even the format of being able to get questions immediately responded to in chat boxes. I mean, I think our staff have noticed that it's a way to just a new tool. But we really do appreciate Indian Country for helping us to you know, as we go through this process. And I think as the vice chair mentioned, we're dedicated to looking at consultations this year. So seeing how to do that virtually in a way that doesn't leave anybody out of the conversation, but in a way that makes it so that more people can participate is a good opportunity, especially.
Yeah, it's been wonderful for us, and I, especially for the NIGC, I just see so much value for Indian Country, and you know, to have all this brain power at the push of a button instead of having to wait, you know, for your consultation meetings. You know, it brings it back to when I first started Pechanga.net in the late 90s. I had people telling me, you know, before the internet, we used to send faxes around. You know, that's how Indian Country stayed in touch, by faxes. And then the internet came, and then that allowed us to you know, it solved the age-old problem of the dissemination of information in a timely manner. And so this is just the next generation of the way we communicate. And, you know, it's a very powerful medium. And it's just a shame it took us a pandemic to figure this out, the value and the importance of the communication.
Along those lines, real quick, Victor. So
yeah, Dave.
If an individual tribe wanted to meet with the NIGC, are you guys doing in person at the office at your building, or is it better to do it through Zoom? We have gotten that question in the past few weeks.
I think we've been doing them both through Zoom and through teleconferences. Our travel has been restricted to mission critical travel right now, and we're continually assessing that with our sort of reopening guidance that we have in place and with for federal agencies, but in terms of meeting with tribes, we've been doing those both with Zoom calls, or I think we've originated we use a Teams app that, you know, for face-to-face with tribal leadership, but we've also done teleconferences with tribal leadership, which have worked too. It's a bit difficult to get folks into the building because, you know, at least here in the headquarters and our region offices, like I said, we're in maximum telework across our agency. It's really only mission critical for travel if we're coming to the offices.
Yeah, we're thinking about starting a radar res, you know what I mean? So it's going to be a whole Zoom thing where people can rate your reservation through Zoom and stuff like that. But that's going to be coming real soon. Jason, what else? I mean, we have some questions. You know, I think you touched upon a really important issue, which is he talked about sports betting and how the pandemic has really sped up, tribes involved in iGaming. As you know, in Michigan now they're doing iGaming, but they have commercial gaming licenses and they're taking bets off the reservation stuff. And if you look at the numbers, they're really quite promising. But, you know, the other things is, you know, cashless is the real big one. I think it's going to be coming. I think the pandemic, if it's done anything, I think it's shown us a real disgust for cash and filthy lucre and handling money. You know, it's just so nice to just give them your card and not have to deal with anything like that. But you see the real push for cashless. Where's the NIGC stand on this?
Sure. On cashless issues, I think we've looked at our regulations in the past, and we don't see a regulatory limit on that. I think that there's we're going to keep looking at that, and there may be some technology guidance that we can provide to help with that. Each tribe will look at its own considerations, whether those are policy issues or operational investment issues about what makes the most sense in terms of cashless. But I think that's those are also kind of fact specific too. So one thing we don't want to do in any of these kind of new questions that come up is we want to meet our responsibility and not be a roadblock or slow things down if tribes have ideas or innovations. That's really what drives the industry, and there'll be more and more of that. But in terms of cashless, as we've looked at that before for cashless payments, that hasn't been a challenge. The other issues about sports betting that is that is depending a lot. As I mentioned before, we started the year trying to provide sort of a framework as we were seeing questions that were coming in and what our concerns are, where we want to focus our attention as the federal regulatory body, and that was on this issue of management and what constitutes management, and whether or not sole proprietary interest is being implicated in an arrangement that a tribe is making as they're trying to find the best partner for them in their operation. We're looking at that. If there's technology issues that relate to that, we can, I think we're going to continue to look at that and would use consultation as part of that process. But we have a sports bulletin that's available online from last year that tries to get into some of the detailed questions about this, what decision makers are dealing with at the tribal level when they look at sports betting, so they know what role we're playing at the NIGC.
Well, it's go ahead, Jason. It just, Indian country really is looking for at this opportunity. It's bringing a lot of change. You're seeing, I haven't seen the tribes this excited by a new product since really since Class 3 gaming. But there's like I always tell people about when you're dealing with sports betting, what are you giving up and what are you getting with sports betting. So I think there's a lot of exuberance for it, but I think there's a lot of reasons to be cautious. And as a matter of fact, probably in April, we will be talking about California sports betting and stuff like that. I am privileged for some proprietary information at this point, but I can't share. But I think it's very important that when California starts becoming in play and stuff like that, you're going to see it's so big and so massive. It's going to be like a nuclear bomb hitting across Indian country, and already you see the effect in Michigan, you see, and it's going to be really interesting to see what's happening in Florida and Arizona too, where the tribes don't necessarily want sports betting, but they're not willing to give it up at all costs, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
Go
ahead, Jason. Go ahead. I apologize.
Sequoyah, go ahead. You were going to make a point.
No, I was just I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Victor. I was just saying that, we, one of the things that we've tried to communicate over last year or, soon after the Supreme Court's decision was, that the role that we want to play as the agency is to be clear about, what IGRA requires of us, and that the decision-making that tribal leaders do is going to be different from tribe to tribe, but that we don't want to be a roadblock if they're moving in that direction. One of the things I think have tried to do and probably try to do more of is to help communicate that role, especially when other partners are coming in from outside of the U.S. or coming in from outside the Indian gaming industry, to let them know how Indian gaming and under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act is different and what the requirements are there. So we try to look to promote that as well.
Yeah, just because they have an accent and they're thin and they have a nice haircut doesn't mean they know everything. That's the one thing that I've learned about Europe, right, Jason?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Just because you're thin doesn't make you right. That's what I say in any country. So, we have a couple questions from our attendees. The one from Tom Foley, our friend Tom Foley. How is the NIGC handling mobile wagers from off the reservation, particularly in sports betting? As we all know, you can't take bets off the reservation, and mobile sports betting is the one that's really starting to push this for the tribe. They've been doing on reservation gambling, but in Michigan, you see they're partnering up with DraftKings. They're creating their own software and stuff like that too. So, how are we going to deal with this in the future? Are we going to have to go back to IGRA and open it up? Or are we going to have to pursue commercial gaming licenses? I know this is all over the place for you, but your opinions would be interesting.
Sure. I think in general, the agencies were pretty consistent in saying that it's it's a very fact-specific determination. I mean, the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act lays out the requirements for the types of activity that take place on Indian land and how they're subject to IGRA. So it I think depends a lot on how it's being developed. Where tribes are looking at new technologies, one of the provisions is the ability to put alternative technical standards forward. But I think as tribes are on the whole spectrum in terms of how they're using that technology as they're looking at sports betting, and a lot of that, of course, as you mentioned, is being driven by the dynamics between tribes and neighboring jurisdictions. So IGRA only applies on Indian land. So if there's aspects of gaming that are occurring in Indian land, that's when we would have a role, or when IGRA plays. But again, it's really so fact specific. It's just that's been, I think, the approach the commission's tried to provide, so that we don't get in the way of innovative ways tribes are trying to approach this, but to be as clear as possible.
Well, I know, and like you said, I mean, it's such a broad question, and every tribe is different, and every area is different. But I think it's important that people know that the NIGC is there. We're all there. We all kind of want the same thing. But you touch on a really good point, is that you do have a lot of people from Europe and the rest of the world that are looking at the American market as their savior for their industry, because they. If you look at the rest around in Europe and around in the UK and stuff, you've seen a real tightening of the screws. And, in America, you see a loosening. So you see a real shift in players in the United States. And a lot of them don't have the experience or don't have the cares or concern about tribal gaming. They only care about their quarterly profits. And that's a big concern for us at NIGA. And it's a message that we're trying to get across often. Is that we understand our industry, and we are big time players in this industry, and we're not going anywhere. So that's really important. Jason, we are close to the end. What do you got, brother?
Yeah, I think just great to have our federal partners on the Zoom call today, and I know it's going to be a tough next 6 months with a lot of uncertainty. Is there going to be these variants? Are they going to come in and upend things? Are enough people going to get vaccinated so we can reach some kind of level of normalcy again? I don't know, but we'll be in constant contact with the NIGC over this, and Indian a lot of cooperation for the rest of the year, and it's a big infrastructure package going to move. Might be opportunity to.
Did we lose him? He stroked out on us again. It's all right.
Well, Victor, if I don't mind making a quick mention, Victor, I
Sure.
appreciate your question you had was from a former NIGC Commissioner, Tom Foley. So I want to acknowledge him and appreciate that so many folks were active in your organization that have formerly served in the commission or alumni of our staff, and really thanks for their insights that they bring out to the industry. So thank you, Tom, for the question.
And like Jason said, we're very grateful to have a strong relationship and a friendship with the NIGC. And as we're going forward with the conference, we'll make sure that you'll have your proper space over at NIGA, so we can make sure that people can meet you guys and continue on these relationships. It looks like we lost our friend Jason. Oh, I think he's coming back. I hear some noise. He got lost in the matrix again. It happens, you know what I mean? I think we've all been lost in the matrix for the last year. So, on that note, unless there's any more questions from our attendees, we're gonna wrap it up a little bit earlier. I have to leave. I have to go get vaccinated. So this is the second one. So, I'm excited about that. My wife and I think I've told the viewers, but my wife and I tested positive right before Christmas. And so we were very fortunate that we didn't have strong symptoms or anything like that. So we got really, really lucky. And so again, I'd like to thank you all, Commissioner Hovland, Vice Chair Kathryn Isom-Clause, and of course, Chairman Simermeyer. We really appreciate you guys out here. I think we got some really good information, And again, if you need to get in touch with the NIGC, you can get in touch through the regional directors, or how else do they get in touch with you? Through just to give you a call, right?
Our website, all of those COVID resources we talked about are prominently on our main page there and under the commissions tab, but www.nigc.gov. We're continually updating that. There's about 50 different resources, individual discrete ones, that includes a number of infographics we put out on a pretty regular basis about what we're tracking in terms of openings in the industry and fingerprint numbers and other things that we're tracking. So www.nigc.gov.
Well, there you go. Again, thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you coming out, and especially at the last minute. Again, thank you. Thank you to our viewers, and we'll see you again next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Victor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor.
Thanks, Victor.